Madam Speaker, before I begin my contribution to the budget, I would like to, at this moment, take this opportunity to welcome to Dominica and to Grand Bay the hundreds of persons who have already arrived in Grand Bay and who are, at this moment, some of them may be listening, and those who are listening via the internet, I want to say to them, welcome. We are waiting them with open arms, and I do trust that during the stay that we will achieve our objectives of the reunion, and we will really have a fun field, and that they will live with memorable, fun memories. I also want to extend thanks to the staff of the Cultural Division, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, for the tremendous work that they've been doing over the period of time and for the past year to ensure that some of our programs, as outlined in the previous budgets and all other budgets before, were achieved, and the work that we continue to do with all the young people, the sports persons, and all the cultural people in Dominica. I really want to commend them for the tremendous work that they've been doing. I also want to recognize in a special way my constituents, my dear constituents, that I continue to cherish, and it's because of them that I am standing where I am today, Madam Speaker. So I want to say pleasant good evening, and I want to say to the people from Grand Bay, Tetmon, Mountain, Grand Colibri, and all the other little areas within the Grand Bay community, I want to say to them that I really appreciate the level of support they've been giving me over the years as their parliamentary representative, and I remain committed and steadfast to working very closely with them to ensure that we can continue to move the agenda of the Dominica Labour Party and this government forward. I want to also, Madam Speaker, recognize the effort of the Honorable Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and the staff of the Ministry of Finance for the tremendous work that they've done in crafting this budget for presentation. Madam Speaker, this is a budget that was well thought of, a budget that was well put together in light, it was very relevant to our local and global financial situation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the programs outlined in the budget were well calculated. They are not far-fetched. And when I say far-fetched, I mean it is relevant to our present time. And just permit me, I am not a person who listens, Madam Speaker, to Q95. But it just happened, Madam Speaker, that I turned on my telephone for maybe less than 5 minutes. And I was amazed at what I was hearing during the time that the Iraq House of Culture was given to the opposition to do their own business, their own thing. And Madam Speaker, as I listened, I thought I pictured myself at the hospital as a student nurse. I enjoyed working on psychiatric unit. And Madam Speaker, I pictured the clients, the patients there, hallucinating and with what we call grandiose delusion. Wow. That is what I saw. And I pray, Madam Speaker, that is not really the route that these people are going down. I really pray that that is not the route that they are going down. Madam Speaker, when we listened to the budget presentation by the Honorable Prime Minister, he did not just outline activities or programs for implementation, but Madam Speaker, he was able to tell us the source of funds for us to be able to execute all of the programs that were outlined. And as we go through the programs, Madam Speaker, we saw all of the programs that will touch the lives of many people, if not all the people in Dominica. Because, Madam Speaker, you know, even if it has not touched you directly, but there can be indirect benefits for all of us in Dominica. And so I see that budget as a people's friendly budget, one that is concerned with concern for the well-being of individuals, families, and our community and our nation by extension, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I saw a budget that is geared towards alleviating financial challenges that some of our people are faced with. And Madam Speaker, as I speak now, I already have a few names of persons who were listening to the budget presentation and who have already been able to make the link between the programs that were offered. And I speak of the people who are 70 years and over, Madam Speaker, because, Madam Speaker, even before that was proposed in the House, I already had people coming to me with those requests. Persons who worked on the road, persons who worked in the farm, on the Geneva estate, you know, on all of those various areas, but were not or had not contributed enough to Social Security and probably just got a minimum added sum of money at the end of their employment or when they turn 60. And so, Madam Speaker, I see quite a number of my constituents benefiting from that initiative. Madam Speaker, not only they will benefit, but even those who care for them, because, Madam Speaker, it is going to remove the level of stress, the level of difficulties and challenges that these people who are caring for them will have in providing the care. Madam Speaker, they'll be able to meet some of their daily needs. And so that is one of the areas that I am so thankful for. Madam Speaker, as a parliamentary representative for the Grand Bay constituency, often enough, people come to us and ask, especially the seniors who are bedridden. We have a few like that, who are bedridden, and who would have to use disposable napkins, Madam Speaker, throughout as they continue to care for them. And, Madam Speaker, I know it is expensive. I buy for some of them, and I know it is expensive. And, Madam Speaker, some of them come and ask for us to give them, if we can assist them with exemption, with duty. And so this is one way of alleviating that problem for those families, Madam Speaker. While it may sound trivial, or some people might take it and laugh at that situation, but, Madam Speaker, I am thankful for that initiative that is going to touch the lives of many people. Madam Speaker, last year we sat and we listened and we had a tax, no new tax budget. This year again, we are presenting a budget with no added or no new taxes, Madam Speaker. It means, therefore, that there is a clear indication for the Minister of Finance to be able to do that when we need so much revenue to manage this country. For him to be able to do that, Madam Speaker, it gives a clear indication of the fiscal prudence that our Minister of Finance exercise in managing the monies or the finance of this state, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to salute the Honorable Prime Minister and his staff for that tremendous work, and the staff for the level of support that they give to him in this regard. They have helped us to steer that ship and to remain afloat, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I continue in my deliberations, allow me to highlight some of the achievements of my ministry, after which I will look at the Grand Bay constituency. Madam Speaker, my portfolio takes into consideration, I'm responsible for youth, culture, and sports, Madam Speaker. And, Madam Speaker, this government have seen youth, the young people for us have made are continuing to make significant contribution to the development of this country. Madam Speaker, if you go through the work sector, you look at activities that are implemented, you look at the movement of the services in Dominica, and we see a significant amount of our youth involved in making the machinery work, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, we realize for us to be able to empower the young people, we need to equip them. We need to give them the tool that they require for them to continue along that trend. And Madam Speaker, while I will ask the Minister of Education to allow me just to touch briefly on education, I can never divorce the Ministry of Youth with education, because we know of the positive impact that the Ministry of Education is having on the young people of this nation. I usually say, Madam Speaker, the most important tool in empowering our young people is a sound academic background. And so the ministry, the government, through the Ministry of Education, we are seeing universal education from preschool, Madam Speaker, to secondary education. We are seeing scholarship and assistance to our college and university students. And as a result of that, we saw in the budget presentation the amount of persons who've graduated with their bachelors, and some of them are now coming back with their degrees, Madam Speaker, as a result of government's intervention and our foreign policy that have allowed some of our people to go out to universities when their parents could not afford, Madam Speaker, to send them. Madam Speaker, the education programs that we have, the uniform, the school books, Madam Speaker, the transportation, transfer grant, tuition, improvement in the facility, the school facility, to create an environment that is more conducive to learning. Madam Speaker, that is all because this administration recognizes the importance of education in the development of our young people. The onus is now on the students, all of those young people who are exposed to those opportunities, to embrace it and make the best of it. Madam Speaker, there is a saying that says, you can take the horse to the water, but you cannot force it to drink. And so we can provide all of the facilities. We can provide everything that is required, but the students are required to take those opportunities and embrace them and make the very best of them. Madam Speaker, even as the Minister of Finance presented the budget, we saw, Madam Speaker, where we continue to pledge our commitment to continuing to empower our young people by working closely with various stakeholders in recognizing and in development of our young people. And those stakeholders, Madam Speaker, includes the Youth Division, the National Youth Council, the State College, National Employment Program, National Development Foundation of Dominica, Small Business Unit, among others. Madam Speaker, all of these institutions and all of those programs that are offered are geared towards ensuring that our young people are equipped with the necessary skills for life. Madam Speaker, entrepreneurship is one of the ways that the Ministry and the Department of Youth and some of those stakeholders that I mentioned, entrepreneurship is one of our major programs, because we recognize, Madam Speaker, that some people may not always be fortunate to get a job within an office or in one of the departments or some of the white-collared, what we consider white-collared jobs. But, Madam Speaker, through skills development and involvement in various entrepreneurship programs, Madam Speaker, our young people, so many of our young people have become gainfully employed and continue to take care of themselves and their families, and by extension, impacting positively on this nation. Madam Speaker, the Youth Development Division has exposed many of our young people through its program to ensuring the economic and social empowerment of our young people. Madam Speaker, I speak here of the Youth Skills Training Program, the outreach programs that we have at some of our youth centers, the leadership training that the Youth Division offers, the work of the small business, of the work of the Youth Business Trust, Dominica Youth Business Trust, among others, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, all of those programs are offered not just to address the economic and employmentability of our young people, but we also look at the social skills, Madam Speaker, that will develop a well-rounded individual that will understand that will be civic-minded, Madam Speaker, set of young people, Madam Speaker, that will appreciate why we need to respect state, respect the emblems of the state, respect people, respect ourselves, and be able to manage in the environment in which we live so that we can make positive contribution. Madam Speaker, even recently, Madam Speaker, there are usually evaluation of some of the programs of the Youth Development Division. And Madam Speaker, even from the evaluation, we are encouraged to continue some of the programs that we have. And so the Youth Skills Training Program within that department continues to work with the young people to ensure that they can learn various skills. And the skills are geared towards the needs of our present era. The Youth Division, through that skill program, offered computer literacy, computer maintenance, building maintenance and construction. And Madam Speaker, we saw that collaboration with the Ministry of Trade, where our young men were exposed to that building construction skills training, where they were learning a skill and at the same time receiving a stipend, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we speak, the graduation for that program with the National Employment Program, the Ministry of Housing and Youth Division, the graduation of this course is just taking place, Madam Speaker, in Honorable Ostrey's constituency, and I guess that is why he had to leave, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we also offer training in auto mechanic, hospitality arts, bartending, housekeeping, furniture repair, leather craft, Madam Speaker, hairstyling, barbering, home appliance repair, greenhouse crop production, sewing, arc welding, electrical wiring. Madam Speaker, as you listen to the list as I outlined, these are things that are needed on a daily, these are skills that we are looking for on a daily basis. And so if our young people take those programs seriously, Madam Speaker, we are seeing where they can address their own economic challenges and become employed. Madam Speaker, a report from the former regional director of the Commonwealth Youth Program, Madam Speaker, on the Youth Skills Training Program in Dominica, the United Nations Development Program, Madam Speaker, selected the Youth Skills Training Program of Dominica as the best practice to be documented by UNDP. It says that something good is happening. When we have people coming out and can evaluate our programs and can consider it as best practice among our sister countries and the wider region, Madam Speaker, it says therefore that this government and the various departments are doing what is necessary to empower our young people. And so I really want to commend them. Madam Speaker, not only do we do the skills program, but we encourage volunteerism, Madam Speaker, among our young people. And so we have over 2,900 young people who are engaged in the volunteerism program. Madam Speaker, we have students from the secondary school, students from the college who volunteered time to work with those who are younger. And they too are exposed to programs that are at a higher level. And those programs, Madam Speaker, was distributed among 75 communities across the island. I think, Madam Speaker, that those programs, the volunteerism program, is important at a time, Madam Speaker, when we have serious financial challenges. Madam Speaker, we must not always depend on look to get some money or earn some money to help to develop our communities and our country by extension, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have achieved a lot in this country through that means, by way of volunteering to do certain things in our community. And Madam Speaker, when we come together, it helps in our whole economic and social integration. And so, Madam Speaker, I want to encourage the young people to come out even during this summer and participate in the various volunteerism programs that will be offered. The Dominica Youth Business Trust, Madam Speaker, is one of the flagship programs for the youth division. And we saw over the past 4 years an increase in the number of people that are employed from programs that they attended and participate in with the Dominica Youth Business Trust. There's a gradual increase in the number, Madam Speaker, from 135 in 2010 to 260 in 2013, Madam Speaker. And so it means, therefore, that the program is attending to some of the employment needs of our young people in Dominica. Madam Speaker, as a result of the work that is being done with the Dominica Youth Business Trust, we were accredited by the Youth Business International, which says that, again, that something very, very interesting and important and good is happening with our young people in Dominica. The Dominica Youth Business Trust was also identified as the best practice in the Commonwealth. And they also gained the Champion Catalyzer Award, Madam Speaker, by the Global Entrepreneurship Congress, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to commend the Youth Development, the Business Trust, and the Youth Development Division for the tremendous work that they continue to do. Madam Speaker, that is just with the Youth Division. Madam Speaker, I want to make reference to the National Employment Program that was launched in 2013. We speak of youth empowerment. And that program, over a 7-month period, can report engagement, employment of 700 people, over 700 people, Madam Speaker, predominantly young people, Madam Speaker. Yep. And so, Madam Speaker, it means, therefore, this government is seriously concerned about the level of unemployment and is doing everything within its power. And interestingly, Madam Speaker, there is allocation to continue the program in this present budget, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, all I would like to do at this moment, as we speak to our young people, is to encourage them to embrace the opportunities, make the best of it, go out there and do the best, try to be as efficient as possible, effective in the service that they deliver, Madam Speaker, which can leave a print where they are attached now, and that in itself can allow them to be permanently employed. It's an opportunity, Madam Speaker, that our young people must not play with. Madam Speaker, as I move to another aspect within the ministry, I want to just highlight a few things within the Department of Culture. And we know that one of our main objectives is to ensure that we can promote and preserve our cultural heritage, while at the same time we try to stimulate a socio-economic environment. Madam Speaker, our programs, or all the programs at the Cultural Division, continues throughout the year. Madam Speaker, we can speak of the training programs that are offered at that department, where we have over 200 persons being trained in various arts disciplines. I want to commend the Cultural Division and the persons within the Dominica Arts Institutes for the tremendous work that they continue to do from the time that the Institute was established, Madam Speaker, just over a year ago, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, there are programs throughout the year. There are programs in the evening for those who are engaged, employed, otherwise. And there are programs during the summer and during holidays to ensure that we can engage our younger ones and even those who are employed in aspects of our culture to ensure that we can promote and maintain that level of enthusiasm, that level of interest that is exhibited as we go through all our various programs and activities and shows to display our true culture, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Cultural Division is involved in staging over 30 signature cultural events, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, during those times, one of the things that we notice as we speak of unemployment, we may look at culture and think we may not understand the significant impact that it is having. But Madam Speaker, even during those activities, we have a minimum of 100 persons being engaged in various fields at most of the activities. We have security staff, we have caterers, we have decorators, videographers, photographers, people with lights and songs, and just name it, all the various aspects that we need to engage to ensure that we can have effective performances and we can really demonstrate that level of cultural engagement. Madam Speaker, the ministry continues to host, and we host the first ever Creole Symposium and Exposition. That was an event that was held to mark the 30th anniversary of the International Creole Day, Madam Speaker. And we brought people from the French-speaking countries of Martinique and Guadeloupe and St. Lucia, Madam Speaker. And even from after this activity, we could say that we brought into the economy $120,000 as a result of those persons coming into the country. So, Madam Speaker, there is positive financial implication or impact for us as a nation when we bring in people to those countries or we are engaged in cultural activities. We continue to collaborate, Madam Speaker, with all the various private and public sector agencies in hosting many of the other activities, and I will not even go into naming all of them. Some of them we are very aware of: Independence, Dumfesta, Emancipation, just to name a few, Mr. Speaker. We will continue, Mr. Speaker, with all of those programs. We will continue the programs of the Dominica Institute of Art, the Creole Spelling Bee, our Summer Acts program, and all of those programs that will help us to appreciate what we have as a nation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we are aware that Dominica has established a relationship with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and we, the Cultural Division, has been working with them under the ALBA program, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to inform the general public that as a result of that relationship, Mr. Speaker, we now have a 3.5 by 5 meters screen, Mr. Speaker, where we can view films in high definition on a decent screen, Madam Speaker, in the ambience of the Arawak House of Culture. So, Madam Speaker, as soon as that is installed, that is something different we'll be experiencing at the Arawak House of Culture as a result of the relationship between our government and the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. And I really want to commend the people of Venezuela for their continued support to us as a government and to us as a Dominican people. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as we move on and we look at sports within the ministry, Mr. Speaker, I can only say that we've noticed, Mr. Speaker, an increase in all our programs, Mr. Speaker, at the primary school, secondary school, through our sports caravan, the programs organized by the sports division. We are encouraging community sports, Mr. Speaker, and so we are staging our district sports festival on a regular basis, and we culminate with having one village in Dominica emerge winner, And Mr. Speaker, at this point I want to say, because I know very often we speak of facility, I am not saying that, Mr. Speaker, to say that they are not important. They are very important. But very often, Mr. Speaker, we find that the communities that probably do not even have the facilities emerge district of the year. Mr. Speaker, the first district was, one of the districts was Tetmon. Tetmon was not village of the year, but one of the communities in the south that emerged top in the south in terms of sports and sporting activities. And Mr. Speaker, at that time they had nothing, no sporting facility, nothing. Mr. Speaker, this year we handed to the Dubic Sports Group. Dubic became the sports village. Honorable Daru, do you have any sporting facility in Dubic? No, not yet. I know you are working on your court, but not yet. And Dubic can emerge sports village of the year, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it means therefore when our young people are determined to work and to exhibit and to develop their skills in sports, they can do it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we staged our inaugural regional under-13 in Dominica. We continue to see our athletes performing and coming out with outstanding results at regional and international level, Mr. Speaker. I speak here of people like Shani Yankee, Jane Shillingford, Pearl Etienne, Luan Gabriel, Shani Angol, Mr. Speaker, just to name a few of the people. And we know our young cricketers are out there. Our young footballers just left. We just had cricketers out. We have footballers going out. And Mr. Speaker, we have sporting talents in Dominica that we will continue to nurture, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we can have men to be part, to continue to have more men on the West Indies cricket team, to have our footballers going out and playing international football at one time, Mr. Speaker, and our other athletes participating in other athletic programs. Mr. Speaker, we can boast of having won the Windward Island T20 2020 cricket tournament. We continue to work with the schools and provide all the necessary equipment that they need, the basic equipment that they need, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that they can develop that sporting potential. Our programs at the school, our PE programs are ongoing, and we will continue that. We want to encourage persons within the district to participate and to be part of the structure that the sports division is now working feverishly to ensure that all sporting districts can have their sports committees and their sports clubs, Mr. Speaker. So we want to encourage people to continue to participate in the activities. Mr. Speaker, even if I spoke of the areas without facility, but I will still highlight some of the areas that we worked, the Ministry of Sports worked with to ensure that we can develop some of the sporting facility. And I am going to just name a few, Mr. Speaker, because I am certain and I know, for example, we have the Woodford Hill playing field. We have spent some money there. And you see it highlighted in the budget again, where we are going to give Woodford Hill another $200,000 to ensure the completion of their playing field. Mrs. Shillingford, it's coming. In Siniku, we've spent over $280,000, Mr. Speaker, to develop the Siniku playing field. Petit Savan, for the first time, is going to have a playing field, and we've spent over $350,000 in Petit Savan. Mr. Speaker, Grand Fond. The Grand Fond people are smiling. I understood, it's my understanding that the grass is doing very well and they've reached the stage where they're just allowing the grass to grow, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it cost the government of Dominica over $500,000 to develop that playing field in Grand Fond for the people of Grand Fond, the young people of Grand Fond. As I drive through Grand Fond because I visit the playing field periodically. And when I drive through, I see the young people from Grand Fond on the roadside and on the old field that they had by the school. I know they'll be very happy to have that facility. In La Plaine, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Saint-Jean, We know that your grass is growing nicely. You've developed your pavilion and work is going on, and we've spent in excess of $166,313. Penville, Mr. Speaker, we know the hard court is going on. We cannot leave out the Honorable Prime Minister. He's ensuring that all of us get, so we have to make sure that his constituency can benefit from the program. Portsmouth, Honorable Douglas, your lighting will soon be, it's in progress, Mr. Honorable Douglas. 179,000. I can say in Tetmon people told me they wanted, we have our playing field, but Tetmon wanted a facility. I've spent $79,425.32 to develop the hard court for them, Mr. Speaker. And we see in this year's budget, we will now provide them with lighting. Because as I drive through, the young people say, nurse, we want to do something at night. We want to be on the court at night. Because I can tell you, every afternoon, they are on the court. And so I will be providing lighting for them in this financial year. I do not even have Monjon. I know, that is why I'm saying, I know Monjon is working. Honorable Kelver is working. I know Honorable McIntyre is working. All of them are doing things in their constituency on their playing facility. So if I have to itemize all of them, Mr. Speaker, we're not going to live there tonight, Mr. Speaker. That's it. Yes. So, Mr. Speaker, we will see in this new financial year the Soufriere playing field. I visited it myself with the sports coordinator, and we know that they require their drainage and everything to ensure that their playing field can be brought back to the level that it was, and they want it to be. So we have now placed in the budget $269,305 for the development of the Soufriere playing field. Roseau Recreation Facility, with Honorable Alvin Burnham. I know he has already spent some money in that area, and we will see another further disbursement for the development of that area. Mr. Speaker, the stadium, we now realize we've hosted 4 international matches. And then we recently had our T20 West Indies versus New Zealand. And all of those activities were successful. And our Dominican public, I really want to commend them for the level of support that they give to our West Indian cricketers. And as a way of selling out our facility to the world, to see the cricket fans in Dominica and the level of support that we give to cricket. And so that can serve as an impetus to want them to come down. And I saw Mr. Nanton there earlier, but I know Mr. Nanton is working feverishly as an executive member to ensure that cricket will continue to come to Dominica. But in order for us to continue to do that, Mr. Speaker, we need to continue to take care of the facility. And so we have an approval of we're expecting an approval by the end of the budget of $400,000 as the first disbursement to the maintenance of the stadium, and so that we can keep it at the level that will attract international games. Mr. Speaker, we heard the Prime Minister spoke of the indoor facility that we will construct in this financial year. And we see the sum of $500,000 being allocated, and that is for the preliminary works. And I can say to you that we did establish we put together all the stakeholders, and they've started discussion, they've made recommendations to the ministry, and we are at a point of reviewing the recommendations so that we can be ready for the visiting team when they come in to look at the development of the facility. So I am eagerly and very, very excited about the idea of the indoor facility. And I don't think it's just for me, but I know all the other sports fans are looking towards achieving that objective. So, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, much has been done in sports, and we will continue to do, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take some time to look at my constituency. The reason why I'm standing here, without my constituency, Mr. Speaker, I would not be here. And so I really want to just big up all my constituents and for the level of support that they've been giving me over the years, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, as I look through, I recently, sometime maybe last week, Mr. Speaker, I took a moment to stop and look at the constituency. And what I realized, in spite of all the financial challenges that we've been having nationally, there has never been a dull moment in the constituency of Granby. Never been a dull moment. When we do not see development in terms of road, there is something happening in housing. There is something happening in small business. There is something happening at the schools. There is always something happening in the Granby constituency. And I want to thank the Minister of Finance and the rest of my cabinet colleagues for the unwavering support that they continue to give to me to assist me in executing some of the programs that I was able to do in Granby. Mr. Speaker, in terms of education, Honorable Senator, I want to thank you for the work that you are continuing to do by way of the school transport, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the government spends on an annual basis, just for transportation, $48,896. $48,896. Mr. Speaker, when I calculated that over a 4.5-year period, I am here as parliamentary representative, that sums up to over $220,000, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is $220,000 that remain in the pockets of the constituents from Tetmon, Grand Coulibaly, and the other areas where we transport students from, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, sometimes it hurts me when I know some people have not received something directly, but yet want to say that they have benefited from the government's program. Mr. Speaker, when $220,000 remain in the pocket of the constituents, it means, therefore, they are able to pay their bills, they are able to buy food to put on their table, and meet their daily needs, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, through the sewing, the uniform program, the school books program, all of those things, my constituents have benefited tremendously. And they will continue to benefit. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, I am already beginning to work as soon as Mr. Honorable Senator gives the green light that my list will be with him, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I can say over the 4-year period, I have seen 6 students leave the Granby constituency to study at university. And I really want to commend the government for that opportunity to send Granbarians, students from the Granby constituency to various universities to study so that they can come back qualified and make meaningful contribution to the development of this country. Mr. Speaker, in terms of small business, Mr. Speaker, I can say that over the last quarter, I will not even venture to go from 4 years. Over the last quarter alone, Mr. Speaker, 24 constituents, that is from January to March, 24 constituents benefited from small business to the tune of $100,000, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these are people with their businesses and are having little challenges and difficulty in ensuring that those businesses are sustained. And so when we give that little injection of fund, they can now get some, replenish their businesses or start their businesses, earn some money. And I try my best as parliamentary representative to guide them in managing their finances so that, Mr. Speaker, those businesses can be sustained. And that is important for us. So I can say I want to thank the various departments for the monies that those persons are benefiting. And that's just 24 in that short period of time. And I can say to you, Mr. Speaker, that there are many more who have gotten prior to that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the National Employment Program that I spoke of, Mr. Speaker, which started in December of last year, I am happy to report, and I feel good to know that at least 31 of my constituents are now gainfully employed. These are 31 young people who would be sitting, waiting and wondering when and where can I get a job. Through that program, we have had 31 people getting employment in the private sector, in the public sector, within the district community, in various areas, Mr. Speaker. And so I am looking forward, and I know that, as I said, an injection of funds have been made, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with the Ministry of Employment to ensure that we can continue along that program, Mr. Speaker, which is so beneficial to our young people. Mr. Speaker, in terms of infrastructural development, we can boast now of a police station, Mr. Speaker, that house our police officers in a comfortable at a comfortable level, Mr. Speaker, to the tune of $4.6 million, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, instead, I think that is one way, and that is the level of prudence that the Ministry of Finance exercises. Mr. Speaker, when you get out of renting a business, a house, for $4,000 and $5,000 a month, and you can now say that you have a building of your own, that is one way that this government looked to reduce the spending that is happening in this country, Mr. Speaker. And so I am happy to have this facility where our police officers are housed and our people can go to make their reports if they have to. And I usually say to them, a few of them, Mr. Speaker, thought that there was no need for it. I said, well, if there is no need for it, let us not commit any crime, so we will not go there at all. So we will send a strong message that there was no need for it. But, Mr. Speaker, it is being used as we speak, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in terms of housing for the Grand Bay constituency, I can say this government have spent over the period of time that I am there in excess of $1 million. And I say that because we have 10 petrol casas under the Venezuelan housing program, that we have 10 families being comfortably housed in a room and in a house that they never thought that they would own, Mr. Speaker, so easily. Mr. Speaker, these 10 houses, if we are to value it at $150,000, Mr. Speaker, because a 3-bedroom house, with all of those amenities, would cost about that, Mr. Speaker. And if we are to value that in itself is $1.5 million, Mr. Speaker. Plus other housing projects where we have 117 houses being repaired over the period of time that I am the parliamentary representative. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we've constructed 15 new houses in addition to the 10 petrol casas. We've constructed, we are in the process as I speak. The budget is on, and the system, the system, as we say normally, it's shut down by June. But, Mr. Speaker, work is going on my toilets, my washroom facilities in Grand Bay. That is why I said we never had a dull moment. So work is going on 9 washrooms in the constituency as I speak. And then we've assisted about 8 other persons to upgrade and to improve from pit toilet to more convenient washroom facilities. Mr. Speaker, in terms of road development, I listened yesterday and I heard one member of the opposition speak of the BAM. I think it's the leader of the opposition. Speak of the BAM, and no work is happening on the feeder roads and nothing is happening. But I think I realized they've been at sleep since I came in. I know they've been sleeping. So I can well imagine they've been sleeping long before. And so I can say, Mr. Speaker, that if on our feeder roads, Mankato and Mopo, and Mr. Honorable Daru will be
5 minutes left.
Yes, please. 10, about 5. Give me 5.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Honorable be given 10 more minutes to complete deliberations.
Seconded, Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker. It has been moved and seconded that the honourable member be given a further 10 minutes to complete her presentation. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? You may continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, on feeder roads, Makaton and Morpo Road, Mr. Speaker, we've spent $376,127.08 for the improvement of those feeder roads in the area. Mr. Speaker, in terms of my internal community, my little secondary roads within the Grand Bay constituency, to include Tetmon, to include Grand Colibri, parts of Grand Bay, Hagley, Highland, and all of those areas, I can say to you, Mr. Speaker, that we've spent $1,391,788, Mr. Speaker, for those little roads, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm aware that there is much to be done still, but I am certain that through those interventions in terms of those roads, I have brought much relief to the bus drivers, to the road users, and to the general public by extension. Mr. Speaker, presently we are just trying to complete the Lale Road project. And Mr. Speaker, we had to do the replacement of the underlying pipes before we do the roads itself. And that cost the government of Dominica $532,122.92, and that work was undertaken by Dawasco, Mr. Speaker. Following that, Mr. Speaker, we moved on to work on the drainage and sidewalk to the tune of $975,036, Mr. Speaker. That is the sidewalks and the drainage. And so 2 contractors are engaged with other men doing those, local contractors, Mr. Speaker. The surfacing, Mr. Speaker, 2 days ago, they did some surfacing, and that would have been completed, but sometimes you have you can have little challenges and setback, especially if you are not in control of some of the material that you require. And so the surfacing will cost over $700,000, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so I can say those roads, all of those roads is in excess of $4 million for the Grand Bay constituency. And that does not include, Mr. Speaker, the road from Loubier to Grand Bay, which cost $8.5 million. So sum that up, Mr. Speaker, and we can say that this government has spent relatively good amount of money in the Grand Bay constituency for road improvement to bring some level of ease to my constituents. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as I speak of that, I just want to send a call to the bus drivers, to the road users, pedestrians, as well as the motorists, to exercise caution, Mr. Speaker. Because Mr. Speaker, when you give us good roads, the tendency to speed is there, and so we need to exercise caution to ensure that we can minimize or prevent any accidents. So I really want to call on the road users to use the road wisely. Think of our citizens, think of our brothers and sisters, our relatives, our people in the constituency, and I really would not want to see anybody getting injured as a result of fast driving on the road. Mr. Speaker, even in Montine, I went last week. We just completed a piece of road in Monty in the village, and one of the villagers called me and told me, "Miss, we need to put some speed bumps because the drivers are moving too fast along the roadside." So I really want to caution them and ask them to reduce the level of the amount of speed that they use. Mr. Speaker, I just want to touch briefly on all the other social programs that we offer. The Yes We Care, Mr. Speaker, I cannot not say how much I appreciate that program, Mr. Speaker, and the impact it is having on the persons who are at their home and the relatives are not able or are not around to provide the level of care that these people who have worked so hard to develop our country, the level of care that these people need. And so, Mr. Speaker, I can only say hats off to the Prime Minister for initiating that program. And I want to call on all the caregivers to continue to do the work with diligence and do it so that our seniors can feel and enjoy their twilight years and can feel that, yes, this government cares for me. Mr. Speaker, the social services offered within the Ministry of Finance and the Prime Minister's offices, and so the social programs, I am lost for words to describe it, Mr. Speaker, and the benefits that my constituents have gotten from those programs. You know, more importantly for me is when they need medical care. And they need medical care and have to go away, and they have to go for those expensive tests that they cannot afford, Mr. Speaker. And so I am happy that we can attend to that need within the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Speaker. That's just one, but there are many programs, and some of our families at one time or another may experience some level of some crisis within their family and might need some emergency fund to move on, Mr. Speaker. Because we know sometimes there is that the bureaucracy in the system can really slow down some of the processes. And so that has facilitated quite a bit of the care that we give to our constituents, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I need to mention the land regularization within the Grand Bay constituency. Mr. Speaker, we have in excess of 40 people who have gotten land on the Geneva estate during the time that I am the parliamentary representative at $1 a square foot, Mr. Speaker. And so these are people who were challenged in completing the payment for their land and now can move on to pay minimum of $4,000. Some had already paid a little in excess of what the dollar square foot was, what the dollar square foot would sum up to, and so it makes it easier for them to now go and work on having their certificate of title, so they can have a piece of Dominica in their hand and say, this is my own, Mr. Speaker. That is because of the level of concern and love that this Dominica Labour Party government have for the people of Dominica and the Grand Bay constituency, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and go on and go on, but Mr. Speaker, I can tell you quite a bit has happened in the Grand Bay constituency. And as the parliamentary representative, I feel elated, Mr. Speaker, when I walk through the streets of Grand Bay, that people can say to me, yes, nurse, you are ready. They call me nurse, Mr. Speaker, so I'll just say that. Yes, nurse, we are satisfied. And you know what is most gratifying? When we have people on the opposition who would be speaking bad of the government and the Prime Minister, and all of us as Labour Party candidates can now say it publicly that work is happening in the country. Mr. Speaker, it speaks volume. That alone says a lot. And so it is just left to all of us to search our consciences, to look at the program that this government have offered over the many years and the impact it has had on the lives of individuals in this country, and when general election comes, for us to continue to ensure that those programs can continue. And I can say to you, Mr. Speaker, without any doubt, that I am certain that the Grand Bay constituency is well on board to helping the Dominica with the Dominica Labour Party with victory at the next general election, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with all of that being said, I wish to give my undivided support to the budget that was presented by this Labour Party administration, and I will do everything in my power to help in the execution of some of these projects. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution and to support the passage of the 2014-2015 annual budget. But Mr. Speaker, before I do that, it is prudent to put this budget into perspective. And to do that, we must understand where we have been, Mr. Speaker, if we are to appreciate where we are and how far we have come. Mr. Speaker, when we took power in 2000, we met an economy on its knees. We met an economy in virtual collapse, Mr. Speaker. we met a false economy that had been created by the regime before us. Mr. Speaker, our debt to GDP position in 2000 and 5 years before 2000, Mr. Speaker, was at an unsustainable 130%. In other words, to understand what we're talking about here, Mr. Speaker, for every dollar that we generated, we had $1.30 in debt. In other words, we had a shortfall of 30 cents, Mr. Speaker, on every dollar. That is the position we met. We were literally grinding to a halt. In other words, in popular parlance, the Dominican treasury was empty when we got to power in 2000. That is the situation we met, Mr. Speaker. The Dominican treasury was empty, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, public servants, civil servants must remember that they could not receive their salaries on time. Public servants in this country, Mr. Speaker, could not receive their salaries on time 14 years ago when we took power in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the government could not meet its commitment on behalf of public servants to the Dominica Social Security. That is what we met. We met an economy in virtual tailspin when we came to power, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that was the general state of affairs. We inherited a legacy of debt and mismanagement, and we set about a task, Mr. Speaker. We set about a task of not only closing the fiscal gap, but pumping life into an ailing economy, Mr. Speaker. We were faced with one crisis after another. Mr. Speaker, we saw the collapse of the banana industry. We saw farmers leaving the industry in droves, Mr. Speaker. We saw the world financial crisis hit us at that same time. 9/11 affected us in all sorts of ways. I mean, our source market, the North American market, was hit, and persons wishing to go on a holiday from North America, especially in the cruise subsector, had second decisions, Mr. Speaker, for want of a better term, and second thoughts, thank you very much, and that greatly affected our tourism industry. These are some of the situations that we had to deal with when we came to power. So the economy literally succumbed to external shocks, Mr. Speaker, when we came to power. Mr. Speaker, these are the situations that we had to deal with. We have had to deal with a number of agricultural diseases hitting bananas, Mr. Speaker, from black sigatoka to the citrus greening diseases. You have heard all of them being mentioned by the Honorable Prime Minister when he delivered the budget. So from one problem to the next, but we remain strong, Mr. Speaker. We remain resilient and we remain focused on the task at hand. We took the hard decisions. We went to the population and we explained the situation that the economy was on the brink of collapse, and Dominicans rallied together. You remember the 5% levy, Mr. Speaker, and the opposition criticized us for it. We went to the people, we went around the country, we explained the situation, and persons rallied with this government and made the great sacrifices that caused us to be in the strong fiscal position that we are today, thanks to the great leadership and the tenacity and the work ethic of this government, Mr. Speaker. We forged some great relationships in that respect. We forged relationships with the People's Republic of China, who helped us tremendously, helped us with a lot of budgetary help, Mr. Speaker. We know the capital projects, the famous capital projects, the Windsor Park Stadium, the West Coast Road. I mean, a number of projects. China came on board with us and helped us to work through our problems. The People's Republic of Venezuela, Mr. Speaker, and Hugo Chavez, God bless his soul, came on board and helped us amid the great fiscal storm that we had to go through. We lost 2 prime ministers in the process. I don't think there's any other country that I know of that lost 2 leaders back to back in the space of 3 to 4 years, Mr. Speaker, but still we withstood the challenges, we stood strong, and today we are reaping the results and we are reaping the rewards, Mr. Speaker, of our discipline. And Mr. Speaker, from day one, the government has concentrated, Mr. Speaker, on our capital program. And our capital program has touched in a particular way, in a special way, my constituency. And throughout the budget, you can see that there is a special focus on my constituency, the Portsmouth constituency. And there are plans for the urban renewal, not only of the capital city of Roseau, but also of the second town of Portsmouth, Mr. Speaker. And I will be speaking a lot about that, using the examples from the budget to show you how we have set about from day one to create and recreate a new Portsmouth. And this budget is evidence that we are certainly on the right track in doing that, Mr. Speaker. So we have gone on to reconstruct and to re-establish a new Portsmouth. And we have done that from day one, from 2000, when we got in. The Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Douglas, at the time, Mr. Speaker, the first set of money was spent at the Benjamin's Park, rehabilitating the park. We dug up the entire park and resoiled, put the drainage in, regrassed the entire park, and today we are well on our way to making that sporting facility one of the more premier sporting facilities next to the Windsor Park Stadium in Dominica. And the budget speaks to it. The Minister of Sports have just finished speaking, and you see the heavy emphasis that we are placing on our sporting facilities to assist our youth and to assist our young people, because one of the pillars of this government and one of the legacies of this government, Mr. Speaker, is to take care of the young and of the elderly in our mix, and we pride ourselves in doing that, Mr. Speaker. And you heard of how many sporting fields and sporting facilities around Dominica have been rehabilitated, have been refurbished, lights coming in, basketball courts and netball courts. This is a legacy of this government, to engage and to equip our young persons, to engage them mentally, Mr. Speaker, to cater for their development intellectually, and I'll speak to that as I go along, but also, Mr. Speaker, to take care of them physically and to ensure that we have strong minds existing in strong, fit bodies, so that we can have productive citizens to continue the development of Dominica. So that's one of the first things we concentrated on in Portsmouth, is the development of the Benjamin's Park. Mr. Speaker, it has always been, like I said, the vision of this government to move this country by developing the urban centers. And Portsmouth has to play its role in that respect, and has to play its role because it's almost like basically Portsmouth is almost the commercial hub of the north of Dominica. We have a lot of the citizens on the north, from as far back as Calibishie, Woodford Hill, Penville, Vickers, Capuchin, even down the coast, Collyho, Jubla, Biosh, come down to Portsmouth, Mr. Speaker, to do their business, to transact, to go to the market, to buy their groceries. And so, and I will speak about it later, the construction of the administrative building in Portsmouth is not only just to serve the citizens of Portsmouth, but the entire north, in which all of the services, essential services, income tax, inland revenue, the registry services, birth certificates issuing, your licenses, all of those, the sporting offices, sports division, a number of government offices can be placed, Mr. Speaker, in that building, so that persons no longer will have to spend, let's say you need a simple thing like a birth certificate, Mr. Speaker, and you come from Penville, it costs you $10 back and forth, $20 by bus, you come in, you have to have something to eat to get a $5 birth certificate. In the future, in the next year or two, you'll be able to come down to Portsmouth, go into this administrative building, and have all of the services ready and waiting right there for you, Mr. Speaker. And that is the vision of this government, because government recognizes that Portsmouth possesses all the geographical and natural attributes to be developed as the second town. All the natural aesthetics, Mr. Speaker, of a modern day town are present in the town of Portsmouth. And so we have the vision to develop the town of Portsmouth along those lines. And so, Mr. Speaker, we concentrated very much on the infrastructure in the town because we recognized that infrastructure had a very important part to play in lifting the aesthetics, like we said, of the conditions for doing business in the town. So first of all, we worked on the main street, the Bay Street. We did all the sidewalks. We completely resurfaced the Bay Street of the town, Mr. Speaker, and lifted the ambience and the aesthetics of the town. Most of the commercial places, the restaurants, the stores, all of those places exist along Bay Street, and so we are moving on right now, and I'll tell you more about that as I go along, to refurbish and rehabilitate Harbour Lane and Rodney Street, Mr. Speaker. And that is what we are doing. We have contributed to the development of the socio-economic landscape of the town of Portsmouth, Mr. Speaker, and that is paramount in our agenda in moving forward and in taking our people to the next level. And although that saying has become cliched, but again, Mr. Speaker, when we say that we want to take Dominica to the next level, that is what we mean. The next level is in fact a place, Mr. Speaker, the next level is a place we want to take the country, and that is what we have been doing. And if you look at the statistics, we see that, Mr. Speaker, Dominica is among one of the only countries that have really experienced real GDP growth in the last year. Of all of the countries really of the OECS, Dominica has in fact experienced real GDP growth, and that is in part due to the proper fiscal management of the economy. And we continue, Mr. Speaker, to be focused and to continue to develop the country along those lines, Mr. Speaker. So like I said, Mr. Speaker, we generally possess all of the amenities for development. We went on, Mr. Speaker, you heard of the diagnostic clinic, because like I said, we recognize again that not only Portsmouth caters for the people of Portsmouth, but for all of the North, Mr. Speaker. And so we looked at the Portsmouth Hospital and we recognized that we had to put the services in there that would cater for the entire North of the country. So we spent millions developing and upgrading the Portsmouth Hospital to a diagnostic center. And you heard in this budget, there are more plans for the future development of the Marigot Hospital and again, Mr. Speaker, of the Portsmouth Hospital. And there are a number of essential pieces of equipment that even as we look at the new hospital that we are putting into the Princess Margaret Hospital in healthcare, because we recognize that our citizens are still spending too much to access overseas medical care, Mr. Speaker. We realize that on a daily basis, a number of persons come to the Prime Minister's office through the public support program, more popularly known as the Red Clinic, seeking medical care. And what are we to do as a government? We have a responsibility to take care of our people, Mr. Speaker. That is what people put us there to do. That is what we have been elected to do. That is our responsibility, and we embrace that responsibility and ensure that we'll take care of our people. Notwithstanding what the opposition will say, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the many criticisms that we will receive, but we will spend a greater part of this budget on healthcare because we believe that Dominicans deserve the best. And one of the legacies of this government will be to take care of our people, the sick and the ailing, no matter what the cost. And that is why, too, the Prime Minister spoke about doing a study to come up with the best system for medical insurance. We have to come to that position, Mr. Speaker, because healthcare is expensive, and I believe it requires a national dialogue. It requires a national debate as to how we're going to create the health insurance so that all of our citizens, Mr. Speaker, no matter what your economic position, no matter what your position is in the social strata, you will be entitled to top-class medical care provided here in Dominica or elsewhere, wherever, and we can save lives. That's what we have been doing, Mr. Speaker. So many women coming down today with breast cancer, men with prostate, and sometimes despite your best efforts at taking care of yourself, or albeit you have to, Mr. Speaker, but like everything else in life, persons are going to, from one time or another, need medical emergencies, and the government is going to have to step in and help them. So we are not worried about the criticism that we receive from the opposition and opposition quarters, but we will continue to do what we have to do to ensure that our people receive the best medical care possible anywhere in the world, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, even in tourism, in the Portsmouth constituency, we have heard the promise of the completion of the Moroccan Hotel. The Moroccan Hotel is about 70% complete right now. And Mr. Speaker, I really lamented this morning on the delivery of the leader of the opposition. I believe that the people of Dominica deserve more of their parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker. And it was lamentable, to say the least, listening to the leader of the opposition deliver this morning. But I want to assure the Dominican people and the people of the North that the Moroccan Hotel will be finished, Mr. Speaker. It is a gift given to the people of Dominica by the Kingdom of Morocco, and another team of persons will be here, Mr. Speaker, in short order to finish the hotel so that we can have the Moroccan Hotel up and running in the Cabrit area. Because for years, for decades, since the 1950s, there have been several attempts at developing the Cabrit area. First of all, we had the Sunday Island project, Mr. Speaker. When that failed, we had the Valhalla project. During the Freedom Party in 1980 era, we had a German guy by the name of Eckart who attempted to do a marina at the Cabrit. Mr. Speaker, we have had several attempts at developing the Cabrit, and all of them were met with failure for one reason or another. It is only when this government came into power we have had a serious attempt at the construction of a hotel at the Cabrits, and that hotel will be finished and we will move on. We heard again in the budget the mention of the Range Hotel that is to come on the northern side of the Cabrits, and we welcome these initiatives. We welcome these initiatives because we realize that the private sector cannot do it alone, Mr. Speaker. The government, the public sector must step in through our great friends we have around the world, and the Kingdom of Morocco happens to be one such alliance that we have forged, Mr. Speaker. And we do not live in an age of the Cold War anymore. The Cold War is over, Mr. Speaker, and so what drives our foreign policy is our domestic agenda right now, Mr. Speaker. No more do you have in the world communism and capitalism and socialism, Mr. Speaker. Those were ideologies of the past. We live in a new age, we live in a new world right now, where you have to forge relationships and alliances with persons not because of their ideology, but because of their ability to assist you with your domestic agenda. And that is what we have been focusing on. And so the opposition again have been criticizing us and said that we have abandoned the Polisaris, Mr. Speaker. But our agenda is to develop Dominica and to raise the standard of living of our people, and we will do that to the benefit of our people and to the benefit of the development of Dominica. And so the Moroccan Hotel, Mr. Speaker, will continue, and the Range Hotel will begin in short order in our next term. And I say in our next term, Mr. Speaker, because I speak with confidence when I speak about our next term. I feel by and large the Dominican electorate understands what this government is doing. They have placed their confidence in us in hard times. When we had to go to them, Madam Speaker, in 2005 and in 2009, we explained to them what we were trying to do. I think they understand and they see what we are trying to do and where we are taking the country. And I believe with this budget, I could almost say we can almost convert this 2014-2015 budget into an election campaign. I believe there is enough in the budget for us to take to the platform and explain to the persons the transformation that will take place in the socio-economic landscape in Dominica over the next 5 years. And I don't think that they will have any difficulty in giving this government, Madam Speaker, a new mandate to continue to develop the country. And so, like I was saying, I was speaking about the cabrits. We see what Dr. Honeychurch have been doing, completely restoring the cabrits. And I mean, every single visitor who have come to Dominica is in awe of the development and the restoration of Fort Shirley and the cabrits. And it is our vision in Portsmouth that we will have Dr. Honeychurch with us for the foreseeable future, so we can develop the entire cabrits. There are many other buildings at different places in the cabrits. I mean, the most popular place for weddings today is at Fort Shirley. Every single function, Madam Speaker, I believe the last function I was at the cabrits, you were there, the phenomenal women's function that's held there. The jazz and Creole is becoming more and more popular. In fact, I'm hearing persons saying that we may have to change the venue because of the amount of persons that are coming there. But I know that the people of the North, I don't know if they want to, they have taken ownership of that activity, and it's a signature event not only in the north of Dominica, but in Dominica in general. Next to Carnival and the Creole Festival, I believe the jazz and Creole continues to hold its own, and it's an activity created and formulated for the private sector to take advantage of the many opportunities that exist up there, all the restaurants and the bars and all of those various activities that can tag along with an activity of that type. It is an opportunity for them to generate some revenue, especially in the off-season, Madam Speaker, when our occupancies tend to dip a bit. So these are some of the activities that are concentrated around the cabrits. Dr. Honeychurch just finished the hostel up at the cabrits, and now we have a dive group. I was just at the cabrits last week. We have a dive group of about 50 persons who are actually staying there for about 10 days, and it is our hope that with the dive shop now established at the cabrits, we can have persons coming there not only for ecological exploration, but exploration of the marine park and to study the marine and underwater life, Madam Speaker. So not only are we developing a historic product at the cabrits, but we are also developing a sort of intellectual academic kind of product where students from around the world can come there and learn of the history and the ecology of the Fort Shirley and of the cabrits area. And that is these are some of the things that we are working on and we intend to work on for the foreseeable future, Madam Speaker. If we stay at the cabrits and we look down during the yachting season right now, it is a pleasant sight. I mean, right now Portsmouth has always traditionally been known as a tourist town because of the bay that we have. But we are continuing to develop our yachting program, Madam Speaker, and during the yachting season now, which exists from September to about April, May, we have persons buzzing in the town, and we have a group put together. I'm working very closely with them, a group called the Portsmouth Association of Yacht Security Pays. The guys provide night security, and they themselves are generating revenue from that activity. A lot of them have gone on to not only be tour guides, but they are actually now tour operators. Fellows like Cobra and Jeff Frank and all of those guys have their websites well designed online. They make contact with their persons. They work with the Discover Dominica Authority to go out to the trade shows, Madam Speaker, to sell Dominica, and more we are becoming a popular yachting destination, and we want to continue to develop the Prince Rupert's Bay, Madam Speaker. If you look up at the cabrits and you look down into Prince Rupert's Bay and to the Portsmouth Harbour, Madam Speaker, there is a complete makeover, a complete changeover, something that governments before could not achieve in 30 years, Madam Speaker, which is the clearing up of all the wrecks on the Portsmouth seashore. This government, Madam Speaker, have been able to change the appearance of the town of Portsmouth, Madam Speaker. Something that the first ship that came ashore, Madam Speaker, on the Portsmouth Bayfront came ashore during Hurricane David. That is more than 35 years ago, 30 years ago, Madam Speaker, and over the years, hurricanes after hurricanes had placed more and more ships on the shores of Portsmouth, and it took this government to clear up the appearance. And I'll tell you, the vision for the development of the Bayfront in the next term, Madam Speaker, would be to do a boardwalk from the Indian River, going all the way down to the fisheries complex, Madam Speaker. So that would create an ambience for bars and restaurants, souvenir shops, so that would enhance the touristic feel. We could almost have a second street, like the Dame Eugenia Charles Boulevard. We could almost replicate that same example on the Bayfront of Portsmouth to generate more economic activity and create growth and stimulate jobs in the local Portsmouth economy. And we could almost have an autonomous region, Madam Speaker, for the generation of revenue and, more importantly, for job creation for the citizens of Portsmouth. We have the fisheries complex right there, Madam Speaker. And again, that is something that we had spoken about for years. And this government, when a lot of persons criticized us for it, Madam Speaker, they said that we changed our stance against our support of Japan for whaling because we felt that it wasn't in sync with our tourism, our eco-tourism brand. And a lot of the naysayers told us because we had changed our support of Japan on the whaling issue, which we had held for a number of years, we would have lost the fisheries complex. But again, because of the brilliance and negotiating skills, not only of the Prime Minister, but of the entire government, Madam Speaker, we ensured that the fisheries complex was built in Portsmouth. And today, that fisheries complex is a source of revenue for a number of fishermen. We came together and we formed a fisheries cooperative, and that probably next to Force Asia, I believe that the Portsmouth Fisheries Complex is responsible for generating, Madam Speaker, the most fish in Dominica today of any location, probably next to Force Asia. And we have some young fishermen now involved in fishing. Persons who probably their salaries in fishing probably is more than yours and mine, Madam Speaker. And that again is in an effort. Yeah, fish sells a lot in Portsmouth, and that again is an effort, Madam Speaker, to lay the platform for young persons to get into productive endeavors. And we saw like never before. A prime example of that was after Hurricane Omar. The government came on board, and every single fisherman who had lost his boat got an engine, got new boats. We have given funding for FADs from Capuchin to Tatan to Portsmouth, Biosh, Collyho, Jubla, all along the West Coast, all over. We have equipped our fishermen, and Portsmouth is no exception to that. And we see that our fish catch and the volume of fish at the Portsmouth Fisheries Complex continues, Madam Speaker, to grow and to expand, generating much income and revenue for the fishermen of the area. And as I am on the whole issue of fishing in the Portsmouth area, Madam Speaker, I just want to take a moment to remember two fishermen, the two Mitchell brothers, that were lost at sea last year, Madam Speaker, and it was really heartbreaking for us in the town of Portsmouth, in the constituency, Madam Speaker. And at this point, I would really like to reach out to all of the fishermen, especially the young fishermen, to ensure that when you go out to sea, you take every precaution necessary to ensure that you are safe and secure. I know that the Fisheries Division under the Ministry of Fisheries have a number of programs for the safety of fishermen at sea, and I encourage them to take advantage of all of the courses and all of the programs that the Fisheries Division have and the Ministry of Fisheries to ensure that our fishermen remain safe, because a big part of the economy of Portsmouth depends on fishing, and we intend to develop it and to grow the industry, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, I continue again. We have assisted there's a ferry owner, Madam Speaker, a person with a ferry boat in Portsmouth. We have assisted that captain, and we hope that in short order we can have that boat up and running, because, Madam Speaker, we are in the middle of Martinique and Guadeloupe. And a lot of our tourism originates, Madam Speaker, from Martinique and Guadeloupe. And we believe that Soufriere Scott said, and Portsmouth, the extremes of Dominica, can take much more advantage of the potential for bringing tourists from the French islands of Martinique and Guadeloupe into places like Soufriere and Scott said for the Econ Conla, and the same thing can happen in Portsmouth also. And so we hope that the ferry can start running very quickly so that we can concentrate on bringing persons into Portsmouth from Martinique and Guadeloupe, Madam Speaker, because we already have a very thriving nightlife, especially on the weekends, where a number of our bars and our restaurants and our nightclubs, Madam Speaker, are very popular with persons not only around Dominica, but even the medical students and all of the other tourists, especially during the yachting season. And we intend to continue to develop Portsmouth along those lines, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, like I said, on Bay Street, we have done a brilliant job, and we have moved on to Haberlin and Rodney Street. And of course, from the budget, we have learned that the Ministry of the Environment will be receiving some funds for climate change resilience. And we in Portsmouth, we know that we will receive our fair share of those funds, Madam Speaker, because we have been plagued with flooding for a number of years. And when I grew up in Portsmouth, we had a number of storm drains that took the water out, because Portsmouth essentially is under sea level. And so our drainage network in the town is very important. And so under that climate change resilience program, we are sure that some funding, and we have been assured by the minister himself, that some funding will be made available so we can rehabilitate our storm drains in that area. I mean, from day one, like I said, from 2000 to 2005, Madam Speaker, the earthquake that hit us in 2004 did severe damage to a number of our structures in Portsmouth. The Rosie Douglas Primary School was completely demolished. And so this government came on board and built a brand new Rosie Douglas Primary School, formerly known as the government school for the children of Portsmouth, for the primary school. And that primary school is doing very well, Mr. Minister of Education. I believe that we were in the top 5 students from the just recently concluded grade 6 assessment. And I want to congratulate young Mr. Robinson for doing very well on that program. And I believe not only the school and the surroundings and the ambience, because of the brand new school that the government has built, is conducive to learning, but I believe the general atmosphere and the efficiency of the teachers, the leadership of the principal at that school, they've been doing very well. And that is the kind of development that the government has been concentrated on. And while I am concentrating on Portsmouth, those pieces of development are not only happening in the constituency of Portsmouth. We can go to Saint-Sauveur, that received a new school. In Salibier, we did a new school. I believe we started off in Newtown. Again, we started off a new primary school. And so all over Dominica, we are continuing the development process. Madam Speaker, and that is what we intend to do, and that is what we want to continue to do in the new year. And like I said, tourism is a very vital aspect of the economy of Portsmouth. You cannot separate tourism from the development of Portsmouth. We have cherished that economic lifeblood from since the 1940s, the 1950s, when yachties came into Portsmouth, and we have developed it. And then we got the medical school, which basically are tourists, Madam Speaker. They come and they study, but they come and they live among us for a year and a half before they return to the U.S. So in a sense, we look at them as tourists, Madam Speaker. And so that is why one of the first things I did when I became Minister of Tourism, I recognized the important role that the Indian River plays in the whole touristic development of the town of Portsmouth. And we established the tourist reception facility at the Indian River, and really to boost the infrastructure around the Indian River to make it more amenable and more welcoming and more pleasing, Madam Speaker, to tourists who would come there and want to experience one of the best touristic features in Dominica, the Indian River. And just 2 weeks ago, in fact, we are in the 3rd week of a summer program, the first ever summer camp that we had, and we had about 70 or 80 children from Portsmouth and its surroundings, where we took them through and gave them different courses in life skills, in swimming, in boat making, because a major part of the life of Portsmouth is the marine life. So some of the tour guides came on and showed them how the boats are fabricated for rowing up the Indian River, gave them a number of courses in sailing, Madam Speaker, because a lot of our legacy and our heritage in the town comes from sailing. A lot of the persons who have established families in the town do not necessarily come from Portsmouth, but come from other sailing countries like Pittimatnik, Carriacou, St. Martin. So we have developed a sailing tradition. So some of the courses that we went through with the children, Cobra and all of the other guys on the Indian River, we really had a beautiful summer camp. And that is one of the things we do. We concentrate on the development of our children. And even in the budget, when you see the government spending money on preschools, it is not only the physical infrastructure of the preschools that we are concerned about, but we are concerned about the development of our toddlers, of our infants. We are taking persons, Madam Speaker, from the cradle to the grave. And that is what a responsible government is supposed to do. So we are providing for babies in the womb. We are providing for toddlers. We are providing for the teenagers for our secondary schools and the Dominica State College. We are providing for our single mothers through the provision of housing. Madam Speaker, a lot of my colleagues spoke about the Petrocasa, but my 10 Petrocasas in Portsmouth were the first 10 to be finished. And I concentrated on single mothers. And some of these women, fathers have abandoned them. They have 5 and 6 children. Madam Speaker, they work in menial jobs generating $500 or $600 a month. They cannot pay rent. They can't feed their children. Madam Speaker, so the 10 Petrocasas that was given to the constituency of Portsmouth was given to single mothers with children to care for. And we have received a number of housing from Venezuela, from like I said, the Petrocasa. We ourselves, the government of Dominica, have gone on a massive home renovation and repair program that have touched the lives of a number of persons. The whole sanitation and washroom facility program throughout Granville and Zikak and Chance. Madam Speaker, we have stepped in to help persons, and that is what governments are supposed to do, to reach out to the needy, to the less fortunate, to the vulnerable groups in our community. And we will never be apologetic for helping the vulnerable people among us, Madam Speaker. We will apologize to no one for doing it, and we will continue to do it, Madam Speaker, because that is what the people have elected us to do, and that is what they expect of us, and that is what we will continue to do for the people of Dominica, Madam Speaker. We'll take care of their education needs. We'll take care of their health needs, Madam Speaker. We took up the duty on computers. A computer today, Madam Speaker, is like a fridge or a stove at your home. That is why we removed the duties on computers. Every single person today in Dominica has a smartphone. You can literally run your offices on your smartphone. And I believe we didn't do it this time, but I'm sure if the economy continues to get better and better, you will see the duties being removed on those smartphones also. And that is where the world is going. Everybody has their internet, they have their email, and people are generally communicating through their computers. And while we said that we wanted a graduate in every household, we will achieve that, Madam Speaker, but we are going further and saying that we want a computer and internet in every household in Dominica, Madam Speaker. Today, in this day and age, when I went to school, all of my research was done in the library. I go in the library and use the computers. Today, our children are saying, Madam Speaker, that they have to do their research on the internet. So an internet and a computer are really necessities today, and that is why the government are taking those far-reaching visionary measures of removing duties on computers, Madam Speaker. And that is the kind of budget that is visionary, that is forward-thinking, and that is what we will continue to do, Madam Speaker. Every single student right now leaving the Portsmouth Secondary School and any secondary school around Dominica, for that matter, can find a place at the Dominica State College. That is a fact. When I left the Portsmouth Secondary School, there were only about 4 or 5 of us who could seek entry into the Clifton Dupini Community College, as it was called at the time. One of the first things the government did was to establish the Dominica State College. So every single student leaving a secondary school anywhere in Dominica today can find a place at the Dominica State College. And not only that, they will get assistance to go to any university around the world. Not only the universities in the countries that we have close ties to, like Cuba, Venezuela, China, Morocco, and the rest of them, but any student who approaches the Ministry of Education right now with an acceptance letter for any university, some of them online, right here in Dominica, students are pursuing courses online, and the Ministry of Education have stepped in to assist them. And that is what we are continuing to do. And I want every single student of mine in the Portsmouth constituency to move from preschool to university to get a career so that they can come back to Dominica to contribute to the development of their country, Madam Speaker. That is what we will continue to do, and that is what we have been doing over the years, Madam Speaker. The agricultural program, we have not left out agriculture, because today the heart of the agricultural program, Madam Speaker, exists in my constituency, and that is with the Chinese agricultural program at 1 mile. Every single seedling needed can be had at the 1 mile agricultural center. And a number of farmers I have spoken to, Madam Speaker, have told me that they can now go to 1 mile, tell the Chinese what they want, from cabbage to carrots to lettuce, any seedling they want, and the Chinese agricultural mission at 1 mile will produce those seedlings for them, and they can continue the agricultural program. And that is creating jobs in the agricultural sector. I went to one of my farmers' holdings about a week ago, and under the employment program, that particular farmer has gotten 5 young unemployed guys who are now being paid by the employment program to work with him on his farm. He has gone to the agricultural mission at 1 mile. He has gotten the seedlings, and he told me, Madam Speaker, that he feels that he is worth his while right now to be in agriculture, Madam Speaker. The government, through the various programs, have stepped in and have helped persons in my constituency, a number of the young persons. When we were told about the program, the first thing I did, I held a meeting among the youth of my constituency, and we discussed ideas of what they could do, what is possible, and some of them have taken advantage of it, Madam Speaker. And I'm very happy today to state that under the employment program under the Ministry of Trade, we have a number of our persons employed. The Town Council have employed persons to clean the streets, to make sure that the streets is clean and tidy in Portsmouth, Madam Speaker. A number of persons have been employed in other businesses under the employment program, and also in the agricultural program, in the hospitality sector, because we recognize with all those hotels that we are speaking about coming on board, the Moroccan Hotel, the Range Hotel, our persons need to be equipped and they need to be skilled to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that will be presented, Madam Speaker, to work in those hotels. Bartenders, backroom operations, bellboys, all of the various chefs and cooks, and all of the other trades, Madam Speaker, and services that will be needed to run those hotels. And so last year, we trained about 70 young persons from the north in the various aspects of hospitality training. And about 75 to 80% of these young persons that we trained are already engaged in various establishments, even in the north. So I suspect we may have to go and do another round of training when those new hotels come on board. So Atlantic View Hotel and all of the other places, hospitality places in and around Portsmouth and the north, have already engaged these young people, Madam Speaker, and they are working. So when the opposition speaks about employment, we have been engaging our young people, and we have been creating opportunities for these young persons to get employed, Madam Speaker, in the various sectors, in tourism, in agriculture, in trade, in all of the other areas. We have been training people, and this budget seeks to do just that, to continue the program of engaging our young persons. And the better the economy gets, Madam Speaker, the stronger the economy gets, the better our ability. And that is why the theme of this budget is about the expansion of the economy. We concentrated on, Madam Speaker, closing the fiscal gap, arresting the hemorrhaging of the economy, and now that we have the economy, Madam Speaker, on a level footing, we can continue to look now. We can look at expanding the base of the economy, of creating more opportunities in the economy for our young persons, Madam Speaker. That's what we are doing to assist. And so, Madam Speaker, the Labour Party has a great history of helping, Madam Speaker. The Labour Party has a great history from way back. If we go back to Edward Oliver Libla, when we were in power, Madam Speaker, in the 60s, we concentrated on the less fortunate, and we are still doing it today, Madam Speaker. So in chance, and like the budget said, we made lands available at $1 a square foot. And so we spoke about Jubic at 25 cents a square foot. That must be a record for any government, Madam Speaker, in the post-independence era. And we have done our share in Portsmouth. We took the lands and we made them available at $1 a square foot for persons wanting to establish their own lots. And we went even further. Not only have we established and given persons land that was probably worth $7 and $8 a square foot at $1 a square foot, but we came onto those lands and we built houses for those persons, literally free of charge, Madam Speaker. So we are looking at taking care of every aspect of the human being. They said that there are some essentials in life: food, clothing, and shelter. And some of those needs, we are stepping in and we are meeting those needs of our persons, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, we will continue to take care of our persons. In Dodan, we have been doing that. We have been looking at the infrastructure in Bonn, in Chance, in Glanvilla, in Portsmouth Central. Pieces of infrastructure that before this government came to power was neglected, Madam Speaker. I can say beyond a shred of a doubt and without fear of contradiction that some of these essential pieces of infrastructure in the Portsmouth constituency went neglected before this government came to power, Madam Speaker. And so we looked at the situation and we realized that it was untenable. It was a situation that we couldn't continue to exist, and we had to turn it around. And that is what we did in the Portsmouth constituency. And I want to say thanks to the Ministry of Public Works. They have been helping us tremendously in that respect. A number of the streets, the sidewalks, the drains have been completely refurbished and rehabilitated. We continue to do work not only on the major pieces of infrastructure, but some of the secondary areas that we need to focus on. We have been doing that all over the constituency. So not only have we focused, Madam Speaker, on housing and infrastructure, but we have also focused on the development of our people, Madam Speaker. And that is what we have been doing, and that is what this budget seeks to do: the development of people. Not only the development of physical infrastructure, but at the same time, we have been developing persons. So in education, we have taken care of their needs. In healthcare, we have taken care of their needs. And our social programs are the most far-reaching anywhere in the region, Madam Speaker. Not only in the sub-region, but in the Caribbean. I don't think that there is any other island right now that has the range of social programs that this government has implemented and my constituency have benefited. Madam Speaker, and now this government is even going further, Madam Speaker. We're speaking about pensions for persons who had hitherto, Madam Speaker, not been able to receive a pension from the establishments like government and Social Security. And like was said in the budget and by the Prime Minister, those persons have contributed to the development of Dominica. We can't leave them behind, Madam Speaker. It is the responsibility of a responsible government to take care of those persons. So like I said, we have a number of persons, housewives, Madam Speaker, women who have stayed home, who have raised the children with nothing, Madam Speaker, while the men went out to work. They took care of their homes, Madam Speaker. And also, taking care of your husband is in fact a job, Madam Speaker. So taking care of your husband and ensuring that he has the peace of mind and he can get up a happy man to go out and work, Madam Speaker, is in fact a job. And so that in itself, Madam Speaker, housewives have in fact contributed in a roundabout way to the development of Dominica. And so they deserve a pension. And that is what this government has been able to do, Madam Speaker. And if at all for anything, in future, history will record this government for looking out for the less fortunate among us. For looking out, oh yes, I'm speaking from experience. For looking out for persons, Madam Speaker, who cannot take care of themselves. And take, for example, Madam Speaker, you work all your life as a housewife. Your husband died. Then you spend your productive years paying your mortgage. And now your children are ready to go to school. You send them overseas to go to school. And the house, because of years past, the house has fallen into disrepair. But you are at deteriorated and you are at retirement age. What are you to do, Madam Speaker? What are you to do? And these are some of the considerations that the government have taken on board, and that is why we recognize the need to come to the assistance of those who do not have a social security, who do not have a pension, Madam Speaker. And it is only because of prudent management of the economy that is why we are able to reach out to those who cannot help themselves at this point. And these are the issues that matter, Madam Speaker. These are the issues that the electorate will have to go to the polls and to decide whether you want to gamble on your development at this point in time, Madam Speaker. Whether you are willing to gamble, Madam Speaker, whether you are willing to take somebody with no experience, no contacts, Madam Speaker. They cannot tell you where they can raise $1, Madam Speaker, and they are making empty promises. We cannot afford to gamble our future, Madam Speaker, and the future of our children on empty promises, Madam Speaker. And that is the reputation and the habit of the opposition, Because in 1995, Madam Speaker, the opposition promised the farmers of this country $1 a pound of bananas, Madam Speaker. That is what they promised the electorate. That is what they promised the electorate, Madam Speaker. And when they came to power, the economy collapsed. The economy bottomed out, Madam Speaker. They couldn't fulfill their promises made to the electorate. And they're coming back again. Yes. They are coming back again with their theatrics and their drama, Madam Speaker. And they try to preempt the budget. They try to go to the Arawak House of Culture, Madam Speaker, and to preempt the budget. And to take away, Madam Speaker, the sting from the budget. That's what they try to do, Madam Speaker. But Dominicans have the opportunity to judge for themselves. Yes. What they heard on Tuesday night, was it, on the show, what they heard on the show, and what they heard in this house, Madam Speaker. Plans and programs for the future development of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Every single measure.
You have 5 minutes left, eh?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Every single measure. 10, yeah.
Madam Speaker, I move that the Honourable Minister be granted 10 more minutes for the presentation.
Madam Speaker, second it.
It has been moved and seconded that the Minister gets a further 10 minutes to complete his presentation. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. Continue.
Madam Speaker, every single measure enunciated in this budget, there is monies already planned and programmed for the development of these measures, Madam Speaker. Every single measure. And like in tourism, Madam Speaker, every single program enunciated in the tourism development plan, Madam Speaker, have been programmed for. We saw and we heard the Prime Minister spoke about the redevelopment of our urban areas. Monies are already planned for that. The redevelopment of Roseau, Madam Speaker, all of the refurbishing of the streets, the Roseau River Promenade to come, the development of the waterfront in Portsmouth, the bypass road from Picard into 1 mile, the other bypass road from Purple Turtle into Bell Hall to accommodate the new Range Hotel that is to come there, Madam Speaker. Every single development enunciated in the budget, monies have already been secured for it. And so in tourism, Madam Speaker, there are some major imperatives that we will concentrate on. We believe that air access, Madam Speaker, is a major pillar of our future development plans for tourism. And we saw this government put its money where its mouth is, and we invested in Liat. We placed monies into Liat, $4 million to become shareholders of Liat, Madam Speaker. We lighted up Melvin Hall Airport while we wait for the international airport to come, and we know we will receive it because of the great connections that we have, Madam Speaker, and we know China will help us with our international airport. We lighted up Melvin Hall Airport so that persons can get to Dominica in the same day of their travel. No longer have we to stay in Antigua, Madam Speaker, and go and take a hotel in Antigua. You can come home at 10 o'clock in the night, Madam Speaker, and land at the Melvin Hall Airport. These are some of the things we are doing. We are expanding our tourism base. Almost every single community right now in Dominica are getting on board the community tourism initiative. Mero set a good example, Madam Speaker. Then Layu came on board. Bellevue Chopin are doing the agri-tourism program. In Geneva, we have the heritage program. We have some new communities like Capuchin and Tatan in the north, Madam Speaker. My boys in Portsmouth, the Portsmouth Association of Yacht Security and Pays have been doing a great job. All over Dominica, we have new communities. Even Marigot is getting in on the action right now, Madam Speaker, and they are getting in on the tourism activity. And don't talk about the Valley. I mean, the Valley is a great example of Dominica's ecotourism product. So from Watton-Waven to Trafalgar Falls. And Madam Speaker, I heard the opposition talking about when they come, they will get Carnival Corporation back, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, talk is cheap, you know. Talk is cheap because those guys, they do not understand the tourism industry. They do not understand the running of government, so they can sit on the side and Madam Speaker, just speak, just run their mouth, Madam Speaker. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating, Madam Speaker. And I can tell you that together with the Prime Minister and myself, we have done every single thing possible, Madam Speaker, to create the environment, not only for the return of Carnival Corporation, but also to entail from Florida all the way down. And the further south they have to get is the more expense it costs, Madam Speaker. And the cruise lines are involved in cruise tourism as a business, Madam Speaker. They are looking to cut costs. So we ourselves in Dominica have to ensure that we continue to make the destination as attractive as we possibly can. And that's why we turn Trafalgar Falls into a premium site, to allow the cruise ships to be able to generate revenue from Trafalgar Falls, but at the same time allowing the independent visitors who are not on an organized tour to be able to enjoy the other areas. And that's why we have developed Spani Falls. We continue to invest in Emerald Pool. Every single new initiative, we continue to invest in those new initiatives in tourism to continue to allow the product to remain fresh and appealing and exciting, Madam Speaker. And so we have a number of new initiatives that we want to concentrate on in the new term of office. I'm not even talking about the new year. I'm talking about the new term of office, Madam Speaker. Like I spoke about the Roseau River Promenade, a cruise village in Donkey Beach, Madam Speaker. We want to do a new cruise village, and I know that the Minister for Works have spoken about it, and came in his constituency, and we will be doing that. The Botanic Gardens, Madam Speaker, we want to enhance the Botanic Gardens and make it a true Botanic Gardens with a lot of more exotic species of flowers and plants and flora and make it more exciting, and even Botanic Gardens, Monbruce, in and of itself is a tour, and we want to make that more exciting, Madam Speaker, for our visitors. The Geneva Heritage Center, we want to continue to work with the guys at Geneva and at Grand Bay to ensure that they continue to develop that product, Madam Speaker. And our present products here, we have been spending millions. So we have been spending in Meru. We are working with the PALREP to continue to enhance Meru. We have invested in Layo, and we are not finished with Layo yet. We still have more work to do on the Layo River. We have the boardwalk to do in Layo, and we have a number of other areas. We have sites in Portsmouth at the Purple Turtle. Madam Speaker, we continue to maintain our facilities down there at the Indian River. We continue to, so while we generate new aspects of the tourism product, Madam Speaker, we continue to maintain the existing products to ensure that our product continues to be exciting and appealing to our persons. At the Emerald Pool, we just put in a new water system at the Emerald Pool for $300,000. We had to do that because visitor experience is important. At Tito Gorge, Madam Speaker, we just did a new tourist reception facility at Tito Gorge, and I told the Member of Parliament, the Honorable Dr. Mack, that he must take ownership and allow his persons to go into the facility so that they can create jobs and they can generate income to feed their families, Madam Speaker. And then in about the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be starting the road up to Tito Gorge, Madam Speaker, so that the experience of our guests can be one to remember, can be one in a million, Madam Speaker. At the Kalinago Barana Ote in the Carib territory, we continue to work with our Kalinago folk, and we are actually creating and recreating the Kalinago experience, because we realize even in the off-season, while we still have our persons coming in from Martinique and Guadeloupe, and the Carib territory and the Kalinago territory is very popular with our off-season traffic, and we want to continue to develop the Kalinago Barana Ote and the Kabe and all of the other amenities so that persons can get a true Kalinago experience, because it is a unique experience of our tourism product, and we want to ensure that we continue to grow and to develop it. At Rodney's Rock, Madam Speaker, right there we have done some infrastructure, and we want the PALREP to take ownership of it and cause these persons to go in there and take it, so that we ourselves can continue to develop it and to work with them, Madam Speaker. We have new initiatives like Spanny Falls, because what we realize is the traditional Emerald Pool and Trafalgars are becoming very overpopulated and overrun while our tourism industry continues to grow. So we are opening up new initiatives like Cicero Falls, Spanny Falls, Madam Speaker, and there are a number of other sites and attractions in Dominica that we continue to sustain the agricultural industry, because we know from statistics that a great percentage of the produce generated from the agricultural industry find its way into the tourism industry, from fish to fresh fruits to vegetables, a number of, and in fact, most of the tourists, when they come to Dominica, that is the experience they want anyway. They want the true, authentic Dominica experience, and that is why we are happy with the thrust to go into non-established and non-traditional crops like coffee and cocoa, because from cocoa we can produce our own chocolates, Madam Speaker, and from coffee we can produce our coffee and actually take the visitor from the seedling right through to actually enjoying the hot coffee or the cocoa tea, Madam Speaker. These are some of the aspects of the tourism industry we want to continue to grow and to develop. We want the tourism industry to be able to forge linkages, backward and forward linkages with the other sectors of the economy. That is the role we feel we can play, and community tourism is one of the best ways to do that. Like I said, Marigot, we just finished spending close to $1 million, $750,000 or thereabouts in Marigot to establish a building, because the Marigot Tourism Development Group, Madam Speaker, they have a product where they want to get into various spices and other condiments, Madam Speaker, for the display of the tourists. So persons living in Melvin Hall Airport can come into this center. Persons doing an island tour can come into the center, Madam Speaker, and get to see the process of things like toloma, of farine, of even the same kakao sticks, of coffee, of all of the natural and local products that we have. That in and of itself can be a tourism product, and we are happy that we have just finished that reception facility at Marigot for the Marigot people. In Capuchin, the trail goes right through the Cana Heritage Center, and it was this government that actually stepped in a couple of years ago, and we acquired the land at Cana because Cana was the place that the first Caribs, when they got to Dominica, Madam Speaker, where they came ashore in Capuchin. And also the reason why Capuchin is named Capuchin was named after the Capuchin monks who came over from Guadeloupe, and the first place they landed in Dominica was Capuchin. And so we have established our reception facility there, Madam Speaker. So we are doing a lot of work in tourism, Madam Speaker. The future looks bright, not only for Dominica generally, Madam Speaker, but for tourism specifically. And of course, Portsmouth is one of the leading flagship communities, Madam Speaker, that will lead the charge, not only in tourism development, but in general economic transformation of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Madam Speaker. With these few words, I readily and wholeheartedly, Madam Speaker, support the 2014-2015 national budget. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to make my contribution to this national budget. But before, I wish to touch base with the people of the Salisbury constituency, Madam Speaker, who I am sure are well glued to their televisions and radios and listening to this great national debate on the national budget. Madam Speaker, it must be noted that a national budget is very important, and we heard that before. Yesterday, Madam Speaker, the ceremony which precedes the national budget gives testimony to that. This feeling of patriotism, Madam Speaker, was greatly shown yesterday. The great number of government officials, foreign dignitaries, and patriotic Dominicans all lined up this Parliament House, Madam Speaker, to listen attentively to this national budget. A budget which, no doubt, for the common person would decide their fate for the next financial year, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, a national budget is very important to the development of a country. And it is sad, Madam Speaker, that during the past couple of years, the official opposition boycotted at least two of those, Madam Speaker. What a shame. To highlight the importance of this occasion, Madam Speaker, as I said, Madam Speaker, Dominicans were awaiting patiently for information most likely which would improve the economic growth and the standard of living in our beautiful country. For 2 hours and 20 minutes, Dominicans in and out of Parliament building listened attentively to the Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, chart Dominica's future, and indeed we were all not disappointed. Madam Speaker, this budget highlighting the theme towards expansion of the economy shows not only how we as Dominicans can contribute to our island's economic growth, but how government's existing social, educational, infrastructural, agricultural programs, to name a few, will be sustained and improved on. Madam Speaker, we live presently at a time when all countries, both internationally and regionally, have great challenges in increasing their economic growth. Statistics, Madam Speaker, shows that growth is expected to be subdued among members of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union at 0.8% in 2013 and 1.9% and 2.3% in 2014 and 2015 respectively. Dominica, Madam Speaker, has realized 0.8% in 2013 and 1.5% in 2014, and its aim, Madam Speaker, is to attain 3% beyond. Amidst this global financial crisis, Madam Speaker, our remarkable leader, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, who has had the experience of presenting 11 successful budgets, has led in the recovery and development of all aspects of our living conditions. Noticeable hallmarks of his leadership, Madam Speaker, no doubt, has been prudent financial management, commitment to the job, love for the aged, children and marginalized, and generally the goal of making life better for all. Madam Speaker, over the years, he has helped practically all sectors of the society, including the farmers. And we all remember during the hurricanes that fertilizers were given to help boost. The vendors, who also received financial assistance when they said that there was no produce to sell. The fishermen, who received boats and engines when theirs had been washed away by sea. The aged, the children, the young, generally, who receive free education, and especially now, Madam Speaker, being employed by the NEP programs. Madam Speaker, all sectors have benefited from this leadership. Madam Speaker, in the face of natural disasters, he has provided financial support in the quickest possible time. And we remember the Lubier, the Layu, all these natural disasters, Madam Speaker, where people needed quick assistance, and this government has supplied, Madam Speaker. Dominica, Madam Speaker, deserves such a great leader for its development, and Dominicans will increase the margin of victory whenever election is called. Being a realistic leader, Madam Speaker, his aim is to achieve an annual 3% economic growth with the participation of all Dominicans. Madam Speaker, an area through which economic growth is assured is the agriculture sector. This budget, Madam Speaker, shows clearly how this Labour Party government continues to take steps to combat natural disasters such as storms and diseases to crops such as the banana black Zika tucker and the citrus greening disease. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Agriculture must be complimented for their effort to control and eradicate these diseases. The government has made available much resources to halt these diseases. The call continues, Madam Speaker, to be made to farmers to help by following practices recommended for the proper management and eradication of these diseases. The plan, Madam Speaker, has been to use planting materials which are not affected by these diseases and to make them available cheaply to farmers. Madam Speaker, we have also seen education to farmers and importers about other even more harmful diseases to the banana which exists in some parts of the world. We pray, Madam Speaker, that cure for the eradication of such diseases is quickly found. Madam Speaker, in the fight against the deadly citrus disease, thousands of plants unaffected by these diseases have been propagated at the modernized nursery at the Botanic Gardens, as well as others in other parts of the island. These plants include tangerines, grapefruits, and different oranges such as Valencia, Otanic, Washington Navel, and limes, to name a few. And these, Madam Speaker, are sold to farmers at much reduced production price. Madam Speaker, this budget continues to support farmers in many other ways. And we heard, Madam Speaker, the PAL rep for the Salisbury constituency said that farming is way down. Madam Speaker, I'm going to try to show that this government has done so much for the farmers that the farmers are very happy with what has been done. Not only do farmers ensure our food security, Madam Speaker, but much economic and financial gain can be derived for the sustenance of their families and even their children's education. Credit facilities set up by the government at the Aid Bank and the NDFD, amounting to almost $3 million to deserving farmers, have had positive results. These extremely low interest loans have been granted, and in some cases with a 50% grant allocation. Madam Speaker, the horticulture program is another worth mentioning. And still captured by the budget. Under this program, which is ongoing, free fertilizers and farming materials such as wire is being distributed to farmers who have diversified to crops such as ginger, passion fruit, dashin, peppers, tanya, yams, pineapple, to name a few. Hundreds of farmers, Madam Speaker, from all agricultural districts are benefiting from this program. Farmers receive free bags, up to 20 plus bags of fertilizers, depending on the acreage cultivated. And Madam Speaker, when the honorable member for the Salisbury constituency spoke, he said that farmers were left out in the distribution of fertilizers. Madam Speaker, I am also a farmer, and I've been to 4 of those where this government have distributed fertilizer. In Layu, before the river came and washed away the propagating station where it was stored, in Kenfield, and twice in the Botanic Garden area. And during those times, Madam Speaker, there were as many as almost 8 farmers from Salisbury receiving fertilizer, just like I was, Madam Speaker. So to tell this honorable House that farmers of Salisbury don't receive fertilizers distributed by this government free, Madam Speaker, is totally untrue. Due to this program, Madam Speaker, there has been great steady increases in the production of the food crops mentioned. Also distributed to farmers to service 1,050 acres is the 4,300 100-pound bag fertilizers. Madam Speaker, it is a well-known fact that this Labour Party government, through the efforts of the Prime Minister, has received this as a gift from the Moroccan government. Madam Speaker, farmers cannot but be grateful for this. This government has subsidized the thousands of dollars worth of fertilizers, and it continues to subsidize inputs. Madam Speaker, farmers qualify for duty-free vehicles for their farms, and the great number of these vehicles with the F number plate can be seen everywhere on the island. Madam Speaker, the increase and importance of agricultural input and material sales businesses which are established in and out of the city is noteworthy. These businesses, places such as DAPEX, 4D, Agri-Sales, Cedric Gade on the Salisbury area are just some which are helping to build the agriculture economy, and we are grateful. The increase in the huckster trade and call for more boats to transport produce to outside market, Madam Speaker, is proof that this Labour Party government is on the right track. This budget calls farmers to take advantage of the coffee, cocoa, chicken and pork and other such programs promoted by the Ministry of Agriculture. All these programs, Madam Speaker, support participating farmers. Madam Speaker, many farmers are publicly stating their satisfaction with the financial rewards of their endeavors. The call is to young farmers, Madam Speaker, to continue to increase in numbers as the older farmers are unable to do as much as before. Madam Speaker, this government continues to work towards the utilization of the packing sheds, where a high standard of packaging will be done before produce leaves our shore. It also, Madam Speaker, continues the process of acquiring a suitable boat for produce transportation. Madam Speaker, the future is very bright for the farmers who participate with the government's plan for the agricultural industry. Feeder rows in productive areas continue to be built, and we await the rehabilitation of the BAM program. Many feeder rows under the BAM program, Madam Speaker, are listed, and Salisbury, as you will see later on, Madam Speaker, receives almost most of that. Dominicans, Madam Speaker, wait patiently the completion of geothermal development leading to the production of electricity to reduce the high cost being paid presently. Madam Speaker, this government is satisfied that it is on the right course in spending millions so far to that end. Madam Speaker, I want to encourage the people of the Valley to support this noble venture. Dominica will certainly be an area for students around the world to study and observe the process. And during that time, Madam Speaker, this will be an added financial benefit for the people of this valley. A Labour Party government, Madam Speaker, will when re-elected, will make that happen. Madam Speaker, with all that has been done in the past to improve housing, this budget pledges to continue. Records show that 3,500 people have benefited with improved housing as a result of this government. Poverty has definitely been reduced, with so many families being proud owners of improved houses. Regularizing squatters and making them proud owners of their land is another thumbs up for this government. Where else in the Caribbean is land being sold at $1 and even 25 cents a square feet? Nowhere else, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, these landowners can now use these titles as security for improvement of their homes as well as their children's education. New projects such this budget clearly shows, Madam Speaker, the status of all categories of projects, completed, ongoing, and new. It provides for all, being undertaken by each ministry. All these projects will greatly make life better for our people, Madam Speaker. In each ministry, we see up to 12 projects under these three categories. Some ongoing includes, under the Ministry of Public Works, the Roseau to Melvin Hall road upgrade, and Lot to Pocasset to Melvin Hall, Lubia to Grand Bay, lighting of the West Coast Road, Pocasset to Point Mulat, to name a few, including the Wharton-Waven Vendors Arcade. Under the Ministry of Health, Madam Speaker, we have ongoing the HIV/AIDS program, purchase of machinery for PMH and health centers, repairs to health centers, and the list goes on. Under the Ministry of Education, we see new projects such as the construction of the Thebo Primary School and work on the Dominica Grammar School. New projects, Madam Speaker, under the Ministry of Housing includes Kenville East Extension, construction of low-income housing, and the Georgetown Housing Settlement. Madam Speaker, it would be a very tedious job to list the many completed, ongoing, and new projects listed in the 2014-2015 estimate manual. This government, Madam Speaker, has been over the years able to raise the necessary funding for these projects. Madam Speaker, statistics from 2011 to 2015 show the following sources of finances. And briefly, Madam Speaker, I will just rush through from 2011. In 2011, Madam Speaker, the government raised over $33 million, loans 32, and got grants of over $63 million. In 2012, Madam Speaker, 2013, it raised $30+ million loans of $49 million, and grant of $54 million, almost 55. In 2013-14, Madam Speaker, it raised itself over $40 million and got loans of $45 million at low interest, all of these loans, Madam Speaker, and grant in excess of $77 million. In this budget, Madam Speaker, 2014-2015, we see the government is able to raise almost $61 million from its own resources and loans $38 million and still a high figure of $75 million from grant. This clearly shows, Madam Speaker, that this Labour Party government has gained over the years even more imaginative methods for fundraising for Dominican development. Madam Speaker, I want to highlight how the Salisbury constituency continues to benefit from previous budgets and the present 2014-2015 budget. The West Coast Road rehabilitation has made it possible, Madam Speaker, for people of the constituency to save time and money, and in many cases to make money. Instead, Madam Speaker, of Roseau being 45 minutes away on the original rough surface, it can be as little as 25 minutes presently. On this comfortable and smooth surface, Madam Speaker, the ride is comfortable in any vehicle, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm going to relate a little story which is humorous, of a man who owned a buggy, and during the time when the road was rough, Madam Speaker, he was harassed by people for the noise that it made. But when this road was repaired, Madam Speaker, to his amazement, the noise stopped suddenly. And he told the people who had harassed him, the problem wasn't his vehicle, the problem was the road. And that is because, Madam Speaker, the road has been so smooth that even a buggy won't make a squeak. Madam Speaker, vehicle maintenance by bus driver and other vehicles owners has been much reduced. Many more vehicles have been purchased by individuals. It is also noticeable, Madam Speaker, that people of other parts of the island now rent houses in the constituency. Other benefits include the setting up of restaurants and bars and food stalls along the highway, all bringing income to residents. Madam Speaker, the Yes We Care program is administered by loving caregivers, and children and parents benefit from free transportation to and from the Isaiah Thomas Secondary School since 2009. On average, $54,000 is paid for this service to private bus owners yearly in that area, Madam Speaker. The constituency, Madam Speaker, is practically fully electrified thanks to the Ministry of Public Works, with street lamps, and the process is ongoing. The Battley Beach is lit, Madam Speaker, and the fishermen are thankful. Soon the same will be done at the Salisbury Beach. Madam Speaker, water improvement in Coolibee Street and the Grand Savannah will bring great relief to people wishing to build and to make these places their place of residence. Landowners on the Grand Savannah will certainly make more land sales, and the vegetable production there will benefit. Madam Speaker, infrastructural improvements have been made to Salisbury and Coolibee Street primary schools, and village roads has been rehabilitated in Monrachet and Coolibee Street, with patch-up at Salisbury Village Road taking place every year during the village feast or carnival. But, Madam Speaker, I need to mention now that at this time that two sections of the road are in terrible shape, the village road now. And I would be very happy, Madam Speaker, if during this financial year those are patched up. And this would make everyone in the village of Salisbury very happy, Madam Speaker. It is really annoying, Madam Speaker, since these holes are becoming much deeper with rain falling. Madam Speaker, housing assistance have been given to many households in all constituencies, and toilets have been built, Madam Speaker. The basketball court repair and improvement have been completed in Coolibee Street. Much cash has been spent for village and feeder road brush cutting over the years. And Madam Speaker, assistance had been given in form of cement and tarish by the Ministry of Public Works in the past to repair the Salisbury feeder road. And a further 60,000 given to help repair the Petit Makushi feeder road, but was not used, and it was therefore forfeited, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a toilet facility built under the Ministry of Constituency Empowerment has helped to transform the Salisbury beach, and a fisheries cooperative fund will manage it. It is the hope, Madam Speaker, that this beach will be developed for not only fishing but for business. Thanks, Madam Speaker, for the initiative started by the washroom facility. Madam Speaker, after the facility had been installed, the scope for doing business there became real. And therefore, this was a catalyst for really starting that organization, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this Labour Party government has kept carnival culture alive in the Salisbury village and has over the several years supported carnival by providing cash for the staging of the event. Madam Speaker, the BAM program of this budget will see the construction of 4 roads serving the Salisbury farmers: the Mero to Cuba Road, the Cuba to Cahome Road, the Petit Makushi Road, and the Salisbury Feeder Road. Surveys, Madam Speaker, of these roads have been completed. It is clear, Madam Speaker, that the Salisbury farmers and neighboring village farmers will benefit greatly from the BAM program. Already a great job had been done, Madam Speaker, on the productive area of Gromond Feeder Road. And I guess, Madam Speaker, when in the budget it was said that roads had been done in the Salisbury constituency, I guess the PAL rep was not aware that Gromond Road had been the road which he was talking about, Madam Speaker. It is also hoped, Madam Speaker, that the Monrachet Feeder Road will be repaired during this financial year. There is no doubt, Madam Speaker, that the Salisbury constituency has benefited from this Labour Party government's budget. And the people of the constituency will certainly show their gratitude by voting the Labour Party again to office for another 5 years. Madam Speaker, I will stop here, Madam Speaker, since there are other speakers who speak, Madam Speaker. And but I, Madam Speaker, am making allowance for the other areas to be covered by other speakers. But I fully support, Madam Speaker, the $489,975,480 budget presented by the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit to this Honorable House. Thank you.
Going on, right? Boom. Madam Speaker, I move that the House be adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow. Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable House be adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. This Honorable House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow, Friday morning.